Hey, Stead,
Yes, sir.
guess what?
What?
There's two of them.
So he has a,
He has a
uh,
mini-me.
I was gonna say an offspring.
Yeah, Kofi spawned a mini-me named Roni. So there's two of them, right? They're multiplying. I'm not sure how I should feel about that. Very unsure. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, if you can see me, you can see Kofi, who has become a regular on the show, and his mini-me Roni, the smaller version of Kofi. If you're listening, you just have to imagine that I have one stuffed COVID the size of a basketball and another one the size of a baseball. Why? We don't know, but that's the type of hijinks that you get on the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. The worst 120 minutes in all of sports. And we are joined, as always, by my friend and faithful companion in all things podcasting, producer Stead. How goes it, my friend?
Uh, Going pretty good. Going pretty good. Didn't really get to watch a whole lot of sporting events this weekend, but I was able to catch the Italy v France Six Nations game. So that's probably the limit of my sporting. Didn't watch a single ounce of soccer, which was sad. My son has suddenly become interested in watching the Winter Olympics, and we spent most of the time watching luge. So if anyone wants to discuss that riveting sled ride down the hill, I might be able to say a few things about that, but that's about it. But other than that, can't complain.
I'm just saying that takes a lot of, as somebody used to say, as my drill sergeant used to say, that takes a lot of testicular fortitude to lie down on your back on a sled that you can barely control with your abs and your feet and hold that position all the way down an ice ramp at speeds reaching over 60 miles an hour. Yeah. I give those guys and gals who compete in that a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
And did you watch the doubles luge? Because that looks even more.
That hasn't happened. They haven't done that yet. The crazy thing, though, beyond luge, is the last few Olympics they've brought in skeleton, where they actually run and dive face first on the sled and do the old arms behind. Their face is about this high off the bottom of the ice, and they are flying down, and they're steering by wiggling their fingers around, and they steer. And yeah, that's a whole other ball game.
They stopped doing that for a long time because too many people died. I wonder how.
Yeah, well, they brought it back because they're certainly doing it.
I've always been a big fan of the bobsled, you know, until I watched curling and figured out, like, hey, that looks like a sport that I could compete in, until you try it and you find out that's not a sport I can compete in.
Yeah, curling's hard.
Yes. I used to think, you know what, I'm going to pull a Lolo Jones and try out for the Olympic bobsled team. I probably watched Cool Runnings one too many times. Very underrated movie, complete fiction, but very underrated.
Absolutely.
So, I got a chance to watch. I watched a game each day. I did watch the Manchester United FA Cup final. I'll talk about that when we get on with Chelsea Mike and we do our FA Cup review. Not a lot of positives there from me. And then I watched Ireland, Wales, and joined Cam and a good friend of mine, Professor George, to watch the Scotland England game. And we will talk with Cam when he gets on a little bit later about that, and we'll get Cam's perspective, who, you know, outside of El Hadji, who I hope will join us shortly, probably had the best week of anybody. Like, I feel like his theme song today should be Pharrell Williams Happy, because that man is just on cloud nine after the week that he had. We'll talk to him about the Old Firm Derby and the retention of the Calcutta Cup. And we also have London Sean, who was on the wrong side of that game on Saturday, and we'll get his thoughts. Outside of that, and some Sean, I got a lot of questions about what Eddie Jones was doing with that at the end. Just very confusing, even for a rugby neophyte such as myself. But Sean, how goes it in the lovely south of England this fine morning?
That's better. Goes well, thank you, Mike. Goes very well. You do know that Covey and what's the other one called?
Roni
are in danger of self-destructing soon, with the world slowly recovering from COVID and all its various regulations. So take care of them and love them whilst they're still around.
Yes, because they're just going to be vestiges of a bygone era soon.
They are. Take care of them. But yeah, all good in the southwest of England. Fantastic night out watching Exmouth Town progress to the next round of the Les Phillips Cup, which was excellent. So that's proper lower league football in the UK. Record crowd of 202. And I was only 2 tickets away from the fish and chips free meal at half time as well. Beer was excellent, and set less than £7.50 for 2 pints. So I shall be going back to revisit Exmouth Town for their next league match.
I mean, so it looked like there were so few people in the stands. I'm wondering, did they give you all rakes at halftime and have you go out and freshen up the pitch?
Did you say stands?
No,
we have to stand. That's about as good as it gets, mate. Sorry, there are no stands at Exmouth now.
No, you stand around. Do they give you rakes and a seating thing to go out? And do you have to put the lines on the pitch at halftime?
Yeah. You have to shout at the old age pensioners walking by as well. So yeah, it all happens down at Exmouth Town, mate. All happens.
We may have to.
They don't have a nickname, so maybe we can come up with a nickname for Exmouth Town. I thought it was very sad.
We do. We should put our collective brain down
with a nickname, exactly.
And how long has this club been in existence? How long is?
I don't know. I'll have to do some research. That's a very good question.
Because the pod may become supporters of Exmouth Town. This sounds like it's something right up our alley. Small, random. If you go to the game, you buy a ticket, and they put you to work at halftime.
I volunteered to seed the pitch. After the match, it'll be easy. It's go walk around the pitch.
Walk around the pitch. Yeah, you can do that.
Golf shoes that helps aerate the soil. Joining us from sunny, beautiful, warm Hawaii with a low of 80 degrees.
Please, 76.
76. The dulcet tones of British Will. How goes it, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing the best I can. Got off work today for some reason, and so I don't have to rush to get on here at 3:30 over on my time. So I think Sean and I are both joining at around 3 o'clock.
Yes, just 12 hours separate. International Rob traveling, I see. No normal background.
Not international, more like national. I'm in by Roanoke, Virginia. I found a proving place, which was not bad, shockingly enough. So I'm just here in a hotel for the next few days, and then I'll return to my lovely domicile that has all the fun scarves in the background soon enough.
And last but certainly not least, our most recent addition, the Professor Matt Kowalski. Dr. Matt, how goes it, sir?
It's cold, but outside of that, it's good. It's good.
Yes. So, and a good weekend up in the Philadelphia area?
Yeah, by and large.
Was it Polish food this weekend or Russian food?
Neither, actually. Chili.
Disappointing. No more recent forays to the Port Richmond area for pierogies?
We had to curtail that a bit during COVID, but we're trying to get out there soon enough. My wife is Italian, so she doesn't allow me to eat pierogies at quite the progressive clip I used to.
Oh, that's a doggone shame. I will say, though, they were really good pierogies.
Next time you're up in the hood, we'll hook it up.
Yeah, I can imagine my significant other would love to try some authentic pierogies from the Polish place. There used to be a Serbian place, though, not too far away in Balkan Express. I don't know if
Yeah,
that closed.
University City, yeah.
Is it still open or did they close?
No, the pandemic, they bit the dust, which is a shame because it was a lovely little place owned by a lovely little couple.
Mhm. I went there once. It was a lot of meat.
Yeah, well, that's Balkan Slavic cuisine, so I'm all down with that.
It was definitely a lot.
If you like meat, specifically beef, you need to go to fucking Sarajevo. Like, just saying that.
I was in Dubrovnik a couple of summers
okay.
ago, but we didn't eat while we were there. And having been to Serbia before on less than, let's just call it not exactly a vacation. I'm still a little bit
Yeah,
wary of going back to certain areas, but it was nice. Dubrovnik has really been rebuilt and it's a great area to go. Anybody looking for a nice trip in the Balkans where you can take the Game of Thrones tour. Sean was there with me. It was quite a lovely time. It was quite a lovely time.
no food and football. That whole region has a lovely, I think, underappreciated footballing history.
It was actually funny though, despite the fact that they were still celebrating their finals appearance in the World Cup, and there were Croatian jerseys and scarves to be found everywhere. When I asked about the football in Dubrovnik, he was quick to say, my tour guide was quick to say, yeah, we don't do that here. We're all about water polo. Because I very much have decided, some people collect shot glasses. My goal is to start collecting soccer jerseys and soccer scarves from the different places that we visit. And I was not successful. I did get a Croatia shirt and a Croatian scarf to go with, the Croatian shirt that I already have. But I was not able to find a scarf or a jersey for the local Croatian team in Dubrovnik because apparently they wanted to be clear. They do not participate in football in Dubrovnik. They're all about the Game of Thrones and water polo.
I'm actually racking my brain now trying to think of the name of said local club, and I can't give it to you.
No.
Not that I follow the Croatian Premier League that much, but at least the clubs that used to play in the old Yugoslavian Super League.
And of course, my tour guide's name, the most typical Croatian name that you can come up with, Darko.
Ah,
delightfully funny guy, great accent, very dry sense of humor, perfect delivery. He was amazing. Anyway, gentlemen, it was besides Stead, who didn't get to watch games, there was a lot going on this week all across the board. We had the FA Cup, of course. We had the Six Nations, and the biggest one for me, and again, I hope that El Hadji will join us shortly. He had said that he would, but when you have 5 kids at home, things tend to come up quickly. And he's probably still celebrating, but Senegal wins their first championship in the African Cup of Nations. In 2002, it was Aliou Cisse who missed a deciding penalty as they lost to Cameroon. A little over 2 years ago, he was in the dugout when they lost to Algeria 1-0. This time he captures the trophy. You could really see the emotion and how much it meant to Aliou Cisse and to the players, Sadio Mane, saying just how important it was that despite the Champions League trophy that he has won with Liverpool, this is the biggest thing that he feels that he's ever won. This was for, the team, the coach, and for all the people of Senegal. Let's start with the game itself. Matt, you were correct when you criticized Carlos Queiroz's tactics. I know that the special one, Jose Mourinho, once said, finals are not meant to be played, they're meant to be won. Queiroz took that a little bit too far, I thought, and how just negative and static, stale, any sort of S word that you can come up with to describe just the type of football that Egypt played, I almost wonder what would have happened had Sadio Mane converted that penalty early in the 4th minute and forced Egypt to sort of abandon this defend at all costs mentality and have to venture forward, because they did precious little of that. And they did precious little of that with, one of the best attackers on the continent in Mo Salah, who was criminally underused throughout this tournament. So I wanted to get your thoughts on, the final. It was definitely not one for the ages, Matt.
No, it unfortunately was rather anticlimactic, especially considering I do believe the quality of the matches improved as the tournament went on. But as soon as it hit about the 60th or 70th minute, it just dawned on me. I think I may have even said it in the chat. This suits Egypt just fine, because the longer it stayed 0-0, the more Kirosh was going to go all out Burnley ball. And that's what I felt like I was watching, low block, low block, low block. Had the penalty been converted earlier, maybe he would have switched things up. I hope he would have. But there's been an issue with Kirosh throughout the tournament. Egypt is not one of they're in terms of just raw talent, they're not on the same level as Senegal. I think we would all agree with that. But they don't have horrible players. And seeing a guy like Trezeguet, who has been in the Premier League now for 2-3 seasons, he's not a great player, but he's better than you have. Just sitting on the bench and going unused until the 65th, 70th, 80th minute sometimes is absurdly frustrating, because when he's in that midfield and when he's not, they are night and day, two totally different teams. It was anticlimactic, and you never like seeing things get decided by penalties. But I think ultimately the best team in the tournament pulled it out. As a Liverpool fan, it was maddening, because on the one hand, I'm extremely proud of Sadio, but seeing Mo, despondent at the end is shitty. For me, though, the big story, and not just the story of this final, but the story of this tournament, the one really positive I think we can take from it, is Cisse. And the fact that I think this is at least the beginning, or at least I hope this is the beginning of a change in terms of, the larger conversation about African managers. And big props to the Senegalese FA because it would have been incredibly easy to have fired him and replace him with some rando European after they went out in 2018 in the World Cup. They could have easily done the same thing after he lost in the final in 2019. They did not. And my hope is that the conversation at least starts to change, and that the default in African football isn't just, okay, well, bring in any European. Doesn't matter who the hell he is. Could be Sven-Goran freaking Eriksson. Any European.
It's often a European who's clearly at the end of his rope, managing in Europe, and then takes one last ditch effort to jump into Africa, because going to Asia, no one wants to be on that side of the world. Can I just jump in here really quickly? Because Matt, I could not agree more with what you're saying. I think if for anything, it's just great for Aliou Cisse. And it's great for a national team that we've seen perform relatively well for about 20 years now. They have had a pretty positive squad, and to see them kind of, that 02 team that played beautifully over in Japan and Korea, really just all of them are long gone. To see the next generation of players come up and maintain some level of quality, and to get an international trophy, no matter what it is very, very positive. So I just applaud Senegal. I just wanted to jump in and say that, because I didn't get to watch the game. But I really don't want to critique the tournament as a whole just yet. I kind of just want to allow Senegal to have this moment to just enjoy a victory. The shots from Dakar today were were just a sight to see. It was just really, really, it made me smile. Wasted a lot of time just looking at random shots of fans running around. So it was cool. But that's all I wanted to jump in and say. Matt, please continue your point you
Well,
were
and
making.
also securing a major trophy, not just by an African manager, which is important, but the Senegalese side has been quality for time, almost 2 decades, ebbs and flows. This current generation, Mane, Koulibaly, this might have been their last big chance to win any kind of silverware on the international level, because we know they're good, but they're not World Cup quality good. And the next time this thing comes around in 2 years, Koulibaly's going to be older, Mane's going to be older. There's some really good young players, but I think securing this now was important for them.
Sean, I know you've been following this tournament. Give us your impressions on the final and Senegal as your African Cup of Nations champions. Okay, Sean is a little muted, so hopefully we're going to give him a chance to get unmuted.
That's better. Technology, who needs it? All right.
Mhm.
My honest opinion, I was pretty disappointed overall. I watched a lot of the games. I haven't changed my tune for the last 3 weeks. Hats off to Senegal, obviously from where Patrick Vieira was born. So always been a country close to my heart. But no, I thought the quality was poor. So I'll make a little prediction. I cannot see any African team getting to be, can't even see any qualifying for the quarterfinals of the World Cup. There we go. That's, what is that now? 10 months away. But that's only my view. There we go, guys. So anyone wants to retort to that, they can.
I disagree.
Go on. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think Senegal can make the quarters. I mean, I think they're clearly battle tested. Obviously they've been to a World Cup, and they had a final in the African Cup of Nations. Now they've won a tournament, and these players are still in the prime of their careers, especially Mane. And so I think and you got Mendy there as well. So I really think they can make it. They're probably the team from Africa who has a legitimate shot to do some damage in the World Cup, especially because the World Cup is happening this year. It's not like next year where it's another year old or whatever. So it's coming up. But this probably will be said later on, but they still have to qualify. And who do they play in March? They play Egypt twice. So that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be insanely tough. And it's crazy because we got treated to a final between two Liverpool stars, and now they're going to go on break for a little bit. They're going to go to Liverpool for maybe a week, and they're going to do it all over again. It's going to be a pleasure to watch it. I'm excited, but I think Senegal makes it because I think overall they have a better quality. And Senegal for me was like the team I was looking at, primarily for Mane, but Bouna Sarr, who plays right back for Bayern, he started in that Senegal final as well. So hats off to him. So yeah, even though he's been ragged on at least from the Bayern side, but I'm happy he got a trophy. I'm glad he has had a positive experience, even though I think he missed a penalty. He's the only one to miss a penalty, but it's okay. He won and he helped get them there. So I'm proud of that.
You're right. It is the two finalists playing against each other in the World Cup qualifying. We had this conversation a little bit with El Hadji last week about just some of the issues with qualifying, and he brought up the point, and I find it hard to disagree with him that, because it's a one-off tournament, it really doesn't reflect how the African Cup, how the African nations are going to do in the World Cup or anything on World Cup qualifying. His point was, Egypt and Carlos Queiroz can play these one-off games and they'll have this one thing or this sneaky thing that they can do or just enough quality to get past you once. But when it comes time to get past you home and away, they just can't seem to muster the same performance on the road. Now, going to Egypt for Senegal to play Egypt in Egypt, Matt, if Carlos Queiroz is even the slightest bit adventurous in that home leg, I think that he has an advantage in at least that match. We have yet to see Senegal have to chase a deficit of that. I know that in one of their last qualifying matches, they were down 1-0 late in the game and came back and manufactured a goal to tie it up just so that they could maintain an unbeaten record through qualifying. But, I think it might be a different proposition for Aliou Cisse if he goes into a leg, or if he has to go back to Senegal, or if he, in any way, shape, or form, he has to chase. Or on the flip side, if the first leg's in Senegal, they get a 2-0 win or something like that. Carlos Queiroz having to set up more attacking to try and chase, because both of these teams are going to have designs on winning. And I anticipate that Carlos Queiroz will still be the coach in March. But who knows with the Egyptian FA.
I think Egypt hosts the first leg, by the way.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but so if he does anything and gets any sort of result, forces Senegal to chase in that second leg in Senegal, that could be very, very, very interesting to see how they're going to perform and how Aliou Cisse is going to lead that team when they have to. But being battle tested, you have to give the advantage to the team that won it last. Will, get your thoughts on this as we start to look at wrapping up this conversation and the African Cup of Nations, on the final, on the tournament, on the victors, on the manager.
I think that it's interesting. I think it's interesting to juxtapose Senegal and England as two teams along a similar line of a similar past few tournament experiences. Because Senegal went on to win the African Cup of Nations this year, and they deserved it. I mean, they were obviously one of the two best teams in the tournament between them and Cameroon, and they never really got up to a running speed, I would say, in the entire tournament. But they went on and they won it, and they deserved to win it. And I think that no one can really say anything different about that. Whereas, and in the past two tournaments, in the World Cup in Russia and in the last Africa Cup of Nations, they did well, but they didn't come up with the goods at all. They didn't win. They either lost in the final or they were knocked out. And you look at the way that the team has gone about it, and the manager's gone about changing Senegal to improve them and learn from his mistakes. Whereas you look at the English manager, who I am not a big fan of, and I've not made it a very, very small point, that I've made it a kind of a little bit of a point that I don't really like the way that Gareth Southgate sets up the team, and the fact that he does the same thing over and over again, despite losing over and over again. And I think it just shows the managerial nous that Cisse has over Southgate specifically, at least, for moving forward and taking Senegal to the next level, which at the very least shows that he is a manager that's willing to progress and a manager that's willing to push his team forward. And I'm sure that, there are people that would disagree with me, and they would say, oh, well, Southgate it's a completely different situation in England because he has to manage this team. He has to manage all these individuals. He has to manage all these talents. But I think that the fact of the matter is, I was happy that Senegal won. I thought that they were the more interesting team over them in Egypt, and I thought that they were playing more interesting football. It wasn't just pass it to Mo, pass it to Sadio and score. It was, oh, let's play as a team and win.
You brought up, we've gone around it. We've had this conversation multiple times on the pod throughout the years that we've been doing this, and whatever iteration we've done this, I've made no secret of the fact that I am an Aliou Cisse fan. I remember when he first got the job, or shortly after he first got the job in 2015, in the run-up to the World Cup in 2018, and everybody saying, okay, look at Senegal, look at Senegal. At the time, he had nothing but attackers. Like Mamadou Jai, Sadio Mane, Ismaila Sarr, and he was playing a 4-2-4. And they went in, they did that, they got eliminated in the early rounds due on the fair play rule. He had the grace to stand up there in front of everybody and say, look, are we disappointed? Yes, but those are the rules. And then from there, guiding the team to the finals with all of that talent, and then to take them till now. Again, I think that he's done a really good job, and he took them over. We've talked about the ebbs and flows. Matt, you talked about the ebbs and flows. He took them over when he took over the team in 2015. They were at one of their lower points, and he's built them back up into this world power, right? Where do we think, and I'll wrap up this conversation kind of like this, where do we think he and this Senegal team can go from here? Rob said, we've talked about, qualifying. Rob, you seem to think that they have talent to get through to the knockout stages. I tend to believe that this team does. When I look at the teams that do get through the knockout stages with the right draw, I think Aliou Cisse can navigate through to the knockout stages of the World Cup. Sean, I don't know if they can get to the quarterfinals, so I think somewhere in between you two, I would agree. Like, I think they're a knockout stage team. I don't necessarily think that they're a quarterfinal or semifinal team. I think if he does do this, then I think we need to give him a job at someplace else and see what Aliou Cisse can do. Matt, what do you think the future holds for the Senegal team and for their manager?
My reading of this situation is right where you're at. Round of 16, maybe quarterfinals if they're lucky. The one thing I will say, in terms of what Sean said, that he sees no African team getting that far. The World Cup is not in Europe, and that for some reason bodes well for African sides. We saw it in the US in '94. We saw it in Korea and Japan. We saw it in South Africa, obviously. Round of 16, and yeah, if he's able to do that, then we have to start seriously considering, Aliou Cisse, for maybe one of the higher end French club jobs, or maybe a job in Germany or something. I think England right immediately would be maybe too big for him, but someplace a little more than just the Senegalese national job.
Rob, what do you think?
You can always get the Watford job. They look for a manager every 3 weeks.
We like Cisse. Why would
we don't want him to do. We don't want him to do that. We hope that he's smarter about choosing the next job that he takes if he gets offered one. Watford. I wouldn't be surprised if they were on the phone right now, having hired just about anybody who's not named Michael Simzak to take the job.
Maybe like a Monaco or something. Again, like an established French side. He speaks the language. Like
a Lille, Marseille.
Oh yeah.
Lille, Marseille was that Lille was my first thought. Lyon, who have been off for a long time, might be a good move. You're right. He does speak the language. Marseille, I know, has a lot of African immigrants that might play well with that population.
And
although
the identity there.
I could see that one really working well. But I don't know I know he has played in France. I'm just not sure how the French fans would react to him, given local rivalries and stuff. Rob,
can I just, sorry, you mentioned Lyon. Can I just give hats off to Lyon, who managed to mug off Spurs for 65 million for Ndombele.
Mm-hmm.
Then giving them back to Lyon for nothing 2.5 years later. That is pure genius. Thank you, Lyon.
Sean is very obvious. He loves anybody who loves Arsenal and who hates Spurs.
Or fleeces them.
Yeah, anybody who can mess over Spurs is all
Anyone
right.
who fleeces Spurs is right up there.
Yeah, and they did do that. So, Rob, you got any input on this before we go to our good friend?
No, I said it before. Like the two clubs I was thinking about, like Lille and like or Marseille, or even like I mean, the German language is tough, right? So they kind of tend to look towards specifically German managers or Eastern European managers. So the Bundesliga is almost out of the question unless someone really gets adventurous. I mean, there are French players in Germany. I mean, especially at Bayern, there's a bunch of them, right? There's like 5 of them would speak French. So I think, or maybe 6, I think, actually, to be honest with you. So no, but I think the Lille and the Marseilles are some of the other the two I was thinking about. He did play at Montpellier, however you pronounce it. On loan for yeah.
Montpellier.
He played
that would be
there
a good
for
one. That would be also a good one for him.
Yeah.
Kind of a mid-table, smaller and side in league. They've flirted with relegation a couple of times, but they've also flirted with being in Europe.
Yeah, maybe something there, like it's one of the top 5 leagues, and something like no pressure would help, right? Because a club is going to have to take a chance here.
Say that, manage Exmouth Town if you want no pressure.
Oh yes, because going from managing Senegal to African Cup of Nations,
okay, all right, okay,
to managing in front of 200 people, one of whom has to fertilize the field after each match. That's definitely a step up.
Well, the other thing that you're missing here is PSG will definitely be looking for a new manager. So maybe not a debate for the pod today, but they're going to be looking for a new manager. In the
I just think that might be a bridge too far right now, and I'm always get wary of when guys like Aliou Cisse, who has done a good job but is still learning, takes this big leap to a club like PSG. And then if and when he fails, because it's almost inevitable that if you're at a big club at some point, you're going to fail and get fired unless your name is Pep Guardiola and you don't live long enough to see your own downfall. And by that, I mean, you don't stay at the club long enough to see your own downfall. You're going to have a falling out. You're going to lose your job. And at some point, just where do you go from there? Very few managers get the chance to fail upwards.
Well, and also with PSG, just due to the nature of who they are, failing is not winning the Champions League.
Yes.
That's a tough spot. That's a really tough spot. It's a big ask.
Yeah, and I just don't want him to step into a position like that. PSG may do it. They may take a chance on him. I just hope that, he's wise enough to say, you know what, I don't think right now that's the perfect fit for me, because where would you go to restart your career afterwards? And then that would be how Exmouth gets their man, Sean. He goes, he manages PSG. He doesn't win the league and he doesn't win the Champions League. He's out of a job. And then the only job that he can get is Exmouth Town. So, all right, we are done.
Quick quiz question. Who is older, Alan Shearer or PSG?
Alan Shearer.
Sure.
By how much?
Well, PSG was 74, and I'm guessing that Alan Shearer was something like 66, so about 8 years older.
No, he's a day older than PSG. Alan was born and PSG was formed the next day. Okay, sorry, boring. There we go.
All right, on that note, we are going to switch to probably one of the happiest people on the pod right now. Celtic
That's not Alan Shearer, by the way. He's just been told he's 8 years older than he actually is, but anyway.
I'm sure he won't like that.
No.
So he's not the happiest man on the pod. We're going to leave that to Celtic Cam. Cam, have you sobered up yet?
I have, finally. It's taken a few days, but I'm there.
It was just about as good a week as it can get. You had the thrilling win last week Before the pod, we talked about the Old Firm Derby, which even I was a little bit surprised at just how dominant Celtic were, especially in the first half. I think they let their foot off the gas a lot in the second half, but defensively, they were able to keep Rangers at bay. They win that, and then you get on Sunday or on Saturday, a win in the Calcutta Cup, and another big win for Celtic on Sunday. So where do you want to start with this whole thing, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll talk about the Old Firm first. Go in order of the week. 3-0 win. Two fantastic goals from Rio Hatate, and then Will Abada just kind of wrapping up. As you said, it was really a first half game for us. We dominated that first half, and as you said, took the foot off a little bit in the second half. I think it could have been a 5 or 6 goal game for us if it hadn't been for McGregor and some of those stops that he made. But yeah, Rangers, just the term I keep seeing is they looked abysmal. And defensively, we knew going into the game that they had some issues with their back line and McGregor letting some things slip by. And lo and behold, it played out just exactly in that fashion.
It's funny. Rio Hatate had 2 amazing goals and an assist for Abada. Abada with probably the simplest of the chances that was converted, but they scored 2 on these amazing kicks by Hatate, and somehow McGregor is able to keep out like the toughest of the chances. It really could have been a lot more. I guess the first thing I want to talk about is this Japanese connection that Angie Angie's come up with. Hatate is a recent addition. Kyoto's been out with a mysterious injury for quite a while. There was another midfielder that he subbed on who, again, looked lively, contributed. He has really made an effective means of scouting the J League and bringing over some members of the Japanese national team to aid Celtic's cause. How are the fans taking this I don't know, this Japanese invasion, if you will?
Yeah, no, it's been well received. I mean, the day that Kyoto joined, the first game that he played, we were seeing Japanese flags in the stands, things like that. And of course, within a couple of weeks, there didn't really need to be any comments about whether it was a good investment or not. Most of these players we bought for like 1.6 million or less. And they're some of the best players that, play in the J League. Mazeda, he won the kind of like J League Golden Boot. For us, she's been up there. Hatate was one of the top league scorers. And I mean, to get these players for as cheap as we did, I think it's been fantastic business on Angie's part. Now, of course, he knows, somebody he's played against and with some of these guys in terms of his coaching position. So he does have an aspect of how they play and if it would fit in with the style in Scotland, which I think most people were skeptical about, with the kind of play in Japan fit with what we have in Scotland. And, it seems to have worked perfectly. Hatate already got 3 goals, 1 man of the match, and he's been in about, I think, 2 or 3 games so far. So I think it's been some fantastic business, especially for a club of our size, with the financial pull that we have. I think it's been absolutely brilliant.
I sound like a broken record when I say this to you on a weekly basis, but Cameron Carter-Vickers looked like an absolute rock at the back for Celtic. He was so good. I didn't feel like he put much of a foot wrong, and he was just so dominant in the air. Here's a guy who's really made the best of his opportunity in Glasgow in that back line. He's getting regular playing time. He really looks like he's developing into a stout defender who's more than capable at the SPL level. I guess the question becomes, what are the hopes that Celtic can get him on a permanent deal? He doesn't really particularly have a future at Spurs. Is there been negotiations? Is there a buy-on clause inserted into the contract already? He's not a Tim Weah where, he's the 19-year-old and PSG is looking to either bring him back potentially or maybe sell him on for even more. What are the chances that Carter Vickers, CCV, sticks and stays in the hoops?
Yeah, so I do first want to point out, I think you've made a great point. All the kind of the transfer talk that we've seen is really abound, and this is usually how it goes for the most part. The attacking players we have on our team, and I think CCV has really been underrated in terms of the impact he's had at Celtic in that back line, really shoring it up. It's been a massive part of our success, and I think unfortunately he hasn't received as much credit as he should have for it. In terms of his loan deal, I know the last transfer window there was talk. There was nothing really official came out about whether we were trying to sign him on a permanent deal. But I think next transfer window comes around, we're going to see moves for both Jota and him. And I think if we were to lock those guys down, I don't think there's any more business we need to do in that next window. But I think at this point in time, CCV, I don't believe he has a buy-on clause at this point in time. But I'm hoping that we'd be able to get him a little cheaper. Jota is being valued at around 6 million right now. I think CCV is about 3 or 4. So I think that'd be some fantastic business for under 10 million there for Celtic in the next transfer window.
It was funny at the start of the season, we were talking about like the lack of business that Celtic had done. You were expressing concerns about the lack of transfer activity, who was going to come in, who was going to play. And then we look at these guys, we're talking Maeda, Jota, CCV, all of these guys are new players, new names to Celtic, and it really has changed just how effective the team is. They look night and day compared to what they were in the first Old Firm derby. So was this a case of, did we witness a changing of the guard this season? Is it now shifted from the narrative being, it's Rangers as long as they can stay out in front to, Celtic almost have to give this away?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. The change that we've seen, I think it really started with Angie. It had to start with Angie. We've seen a lot of the issues we've had with the Celtic transfer window is that they either leave it to the last minute, or we know that the board kind of freezes and doesn't want to spend that extra bit of cash. It looks like Angie came in with a plan with players that are of high enough quality that maybe don't cost the club that much. So, as I say, a lot of these guys from Japan, I think the most expensive was 1.6 million for a buyout. And then, these loan deals that we have with CCV and Jota, picking up guys like Matt O'Reilly, things like that, these kind of inexpensive players at the board are going to be more willing to buy that Angie has some information on. And I think that's something that we've lacked over the years. I think over the years, we've seen coaches that don't necessarily take as keen of an eye in the transfer market, and they're as well prepared coming into it at Celtic. So I think, again, you're absolutely right that, I think changing in the backroom staff a little bit and having Angie come in has been a massive, massive boost for our transfer hopes.
He hasn't won a doggone thing yet. Is he already a Celtic legend?
That's a great question. Everyone absolutely loves him so far. We still got the Scottish Cup to go. So, we'll see how we go with the Scottish Cup. But I think if we win that, I think that's going to be a good kind of foothold in club history for him for sure.
All right, so we're going to move a little bit further on in the week. We come to Saturday and the Calcutta Cup. We watched it together. It ends up a 20-17 victory for the first time in almost 40 years. Scotland retained the Calcutta Cup. 83-84, Sean, was the last time they beat them in back-to-back tests. Sean, did Scotland win or did England give that one up? Okay, we're waiting on Sean to figure out technology again.
Yeah, exactly. A bit of both.
Hey, Will, sounds like one of your colleagues.
I do think that I think Scotland deserve to win. The bookmakers over here, they get these things right every year. So they gave Scotland a 2 points start in the handicap, and the game was about that tight, really, wasn't it? But yet you could argue it was a bad mistake by Luke at the end there, ex-to boy as well. But overall, no, I think Scotland did deserve to win. So, and it gave me an excuse to get the whiskey, the good stuff out of the cupboard anyway, to celebrate. And
I was a bit surprised that Eddie Jones took Marcus Smith, the fly half, off, considering the fact that when he left the field, England were up 17-10, and he had scored all 17 points. I know that he missed some kicks, that maybe he wasn't necessarily as effective in his Six Nations debut as you might have hoped. But then again, you saw on that one try that he scored just how dangerous that he could be when he can find just a sliver of space. The agility, the athleticism, the vision to be able to just wiggle his way through those last, 10 yards of the Scotland defense to get in for England's only try. What was Eddie Jones thinking? And I know I'm not the only person who was questioning that move, because I've read a lot of the pundits afterwards, and everybody seemed to roundly be questioning Eddie Jones' decision to take the guy off when you didn't really have a like-for-like replacement to bring on. Sean.
oh, are you asking me again?
Yes, you're the England guy.
I'm the England guy. I don't know. I'm not that up to date. It's terrible, really, considering that the champions of were they champions? Sorry, Exeter only being up the road, being one of our top rugby clubs. I'm not even sure who they could have brought on. I agree with you that it did seem strange, but on the same breath, Mike, now rugby's become a much different game to it was, when I played it and when I used to watch it more regularly. Have they not got unlimited substitutes anyway? And they tend to use these unlimited substitutes. So I'm not sure bringing one guy off with 10 minutes to go necessarily changes a lot, because they probably put 5 new guys on. I can't remember how many subs England used, but I think they used a lot, as did Scotland. So certainly he seems to have a bright future. He's only 5'7".
Yeah,
he seems to be too small to be a rugby player, but he's obviously a very good rugby player. But yeah, he'll bounce back. He'll bounce back. Marcus.
To the other side of this, Cam, big win. Wasn't pretty. I remember you remarked to me, the game was 4 minutes old and Stuart Hogg already had blood on his head. And I said, what, did you expect that it would take that much longer? Mm-hmm. It was, the conditions weren't great. It was muddy. It was a bit ugly at times. This was not the prettiest game of rugby to watch. This was definitely like a war of attrition out there. I know it got a little nervy after the penalty in the Marcus Smith try. They come down, they make the play necessary to put England in confusion. You get the penalty try. They score the penalty while their player up are able to see out the rest of the game. 2017 with the big win in Murrayfield over England, and in a very good position right now in the Six Nations. What did you make of this game and the Scotland performance?
Yeah, no, I thought it was good. We saw some good plays from, Scotland debut, Ben White. I think he played fantastic. I mean, he got really the only, outside of the penalty try, the only try that we got. Finn Russell was on point as usual. I think you're absolutely right. It wasn't the prettiest game of rugby. It was a very kind of ground and pound form of rugby. Now, granted, I kind of like that, phase after phase sort of rugby. I think can be very entertaining to watch. But no, I think Scotland is looking good in terms of this tournament. I will say, I think, that the penalty try, you don't see many. I haven't really seen too many of them. I don't know if Sean knows it's more common than I do, but I haven't really seen too many of those before. And I can see why, because, it looked very controversial at first. I think it was the right call in the end, but I can see how those can be quite difficult to call. And, ultimately that had the final impact on the game for us. But yeah, as I say, I think overall Scotland is looking really, really good for this tournament. I'm excited to see how they play against Wales, in Cardiff, which is going to be a big game. It's going to be a very difficult game. So we'll see how they play on the road, which I think will have a big impact because we've only got 2 home games. Thankfully, the next one's against France. We get to play them at Murrayfield, but then the 2 games after that, are on the road again. So we'll have to see how Scotland handles the pressure of playing away.
Instead, I got to tell you, and Stead and Will and Matt, I got to tell you, I'm a huge fan of VAR and the refs in rugby. There are at least 2 occasions. One, that the penalty try that that Celtic Cam just talked about, where it was a controversial play, but you could hear the video assistant referee talking to the ref, the deliberations. Everybody seemed to be in agreement, and he said, look, there was a clear motion on the behalf of the player to deflect the ball out of bounds and deny a clear goal scoring opportunity. I know what he saw. I was looking at it. I understood it. And then it was good. And I could understand exactly what I was looking at. I don't necessarily think the call was harsh. Cam, you alluded to it. You can see why you don't see that many. It just seemed like a harsh result. You not only do you give up the full 7 points, you also lose the player for 10 minutes. I mean, that's a lot. We've kind of undone the red card penalty thing in football for that reason, so that people don't get double punished. The other one, though, was a try in the Ireland-Wales game where the player grounded the ball, and the ref initially called that he thought that he grounded the ball short of the line. They went up. You can hear again, you can hear the talking. Well, is it a legal motion? What? And then he said, the video, no, that's a legal motion. And the referee came out and reversed his decisions. I have been screaming for more transparency in VAR deliberations. I think that's what we need. Even if you don't disagree with it, after they tell you what they see, I mean, it gets kind of hard to dispute what you're looking at. Ref, making decisions, see player make movement to direct ball out of bounds. The result, according to the law, is a penalty try. Here, captains come over here. This is what's going to happen. And then, of course, all the players walk off very happily, and they're like, okay, sir, whatever you say. I don't know. Will, what do you think?
Well, I mean, as I said, play stupid game, win stupid prizes. That's what England did, and that's why they got a penalty try, and that's why he got sent off. I mean, he got sent off for the yellow. He's not sent off for the whole game. I mean, sucks that it was towards the end of the game, so he can't come back on. But, break the rules, you get punished. I mean, I don't think anyone's in.
I was talking not the call itself, but I thought the whole
transparency about it is, well, rugby refs are generally pretty good, and English Premier League refs are not. So, I mean, you if you get any of the sort of like leaked microphone conversations between English Premier League refs, sometimes you hear Jonathan Moss saying, "Oh, well, did he kick him?" when he was talking about Dejan Lovren, and the linesman said, "Oh, I don't know, I didn't see it." And then Jonathan Moss says, "I feel like he probably did kick him. I didn't see it either, but I'm going to send him off anyway." I mean, that's the sort of conversations that the Prem refs have. They're going on feelings and a prayer, and not really trying to cover themselves in any sort of validity, because they don't need to, because they're not scrutinized. That's kind of why rugby has respect to, I feel one of the reasons why people have respect towards rugby refs is because they are scrutinized. And in the Premier League, they don't. I mean, the most scrutiny you get is when managers aren't penalized or fined for calling out a bad call, and that's not exactly good scrutiny, at least in my opinion. I think that you're completely correct.
One of the reasons why they're scrutinized so hard is because everything is right there in front of you. You know exactly what the ref is communicating with the players, and we can hear it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a level of accountability I think that we need in the Premier League around the refs, is that sort of thing. We know exactly what's going on. We are hearing it, right? And then it is immediately public if a referee in a rugby match makes a bad decision, because everybody can hear and can say, okay, what in the world did you see? Like you said, after the ref said exactly what he saw while reviewing it with the video assistant replay official, it became immediately clear. Like, it was hard to deny it. And he said, this is exactly what I see. This is how it's going to be judged. Now, if you do have a case where it's like, oh, did he kick him? I don't know, but I think he did. That's like Babe Ruth to the umpire. Did you see that pitch? No, I didn't either, but it sounded high to me. Cam, you brought up Wales, Scotland's next opponent. They played and lost to Ireland in the first game on Saturday, in the first game of the tournament. It was not a particularly stirring, rousing performance by Wales. I think that Ireland actually has to be a bit of grief that they gave up a late try to Wales. It probably should have been a little bit more than 29-7. They certainly had the opportunities, especially in the first half when it was only 10-0, and they failed to convert some penalties and to take the initiative and tried to settle for penalties, which they missed, rather than take the momentum and go for tries. They put their foot on the gas and scored, I believe, 3 or 4 tries in the second half, ran out winners. They're now sitting second simply because France had more points, had a larger margin of victory against a Italian team that actually punched a little bit above their weight class. This is definitely not the Wales team that I expected to see, and it did not. They're decimated by injury. They're absent. This is not the Wales team that won last year's tournament by any stretch of the imagination. But they're still dangerous. What are you expecting to see in the next round of fixtures when they take on Scotland, when Scotland takes on Wales?
Yeah, so as you said, they're not off to a great start. They're sitting bottom of the table at this point, under England here, with 0 points. But I think, again, I think going to Wales is always a difficult game. We saw that a lot last Six Nations. So I think Scotland are in a good position, as you say, with injury. With them coming off this heavy, pretty rough loss. I think Scotland are in a good position to really use the strength that we have in people like Hamish Watson, Finn Russell, Ali Price, Stuart Hogg, guys like that. I think we're in a really good position to really capitalize here and hopefully, knock on wood, take some easy points off Wales, who, as you say, have been pretty decimated by injury and are just not looking like they're working together efficiently as a team.
Stead, I'm gonna put this out there too,
Mm-hmm.
but I do feel like I have something going on the 12th. I do know I have something going on the 12th because I have to do dinner later on. 11:45 is France and Ireland. It's the second week of the tournament, but this could be for all the marbles right there.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be out of town, so I won't be able to make it. But I did watch the France game this week in France-Italy. And yes, you are right. Italy was punching well above their weight for about 60 minutes, maybe 55 minutes. And it just seemed like the physical size difference of France over Italy just started to take over. And Italy just couldn't hang. And you got to applaud Italy, considering that they are at least having a better showing than they did the last Six Nations when they were royally stomped. But I don't want to act like France looked great either. I think they capitalized just on the fatigue of the Italian team when they started making really bad passes and just generally kind of lost their awareness of their positioning. But granted, I didn't see the other teams play, so I'll be curious. But I wouldn't be surprised though if France doesn't win. I wouldn't be surprised, because they just didn't seem to be as strong as I expected them to be early, especially early on in the first half. I mean, they were down for a little bit, and I believe the first half was 10-10. So, but it was an enjoyable game to watch. It was enjoyable. I think probably too, my judgment was a bit clouded because just the improvement in the way Italy was playing was good to see.
It's going to be a tough one going into France for Ireland. the size and the speed.
Saint Denis is a beautiful stadium. Just beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful stadium. You know, the French have that size and that power. They have been known at points in time in this tournament to lose foolishly. You know, it came down to, Cam, we talked about it, a last second epic phase by phase march up the field with a man down to score that game-ending try when their backs were against the wall. But France capitulated, and that loss to Scotland was what caused them to lose. The other game is England versus Italy. Sean just had to duck out. It's just a matter of how many England can run up against Italy. All right, Cam. Well, we want to thank you for coming on and joining us and chatting a little bit tonight about the Six Nations and Celtic. Hopefully things continue to go well in the land of enchantment for the Scots, and we'll get you back on next week to talk more about it.
Sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a good one. So we are going to turn our attention to our good friend, the traveler himself. Iron Rob, how goes it, my friend?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Just peachy.
Interesting haps in the Bundesliga this week, but let's start with the wrap up of the qualification for the US men, who beat Honduras 3-0 in 3-0. Yeah, that's what I said. 3-0 in the frozen north in an outdoor game in Minnesota. Greg Berhalter has gotten criticized by just about everybody for decision to play that game against that opponent in that weather in Minnesota. On the one hand, I see what everybody's saying. Like, you don't need that level of gamesmanship when you're the US against Honduras, right? Play them where you want to play them and just say, you know, we believe that we have enough talent to beat you wherever we play you, and we're going to run out victorious. On the other hand, I get what he's saying. Like, this is part of the gamesmanship that makes CONCACAF qualifying so tough, is that you have teams that do these sorts of things. You know, Canada drug Mexico up to Edmonton to an outdoor stadium. They knew what they were doing when they did that. They knew what they were doing when they played us in Hamilton on that turf field that's the size of, basically, it's like playing in a skating rink. It's so small. Where do you come down on it? You know, was that bad form by Berhalter playing Honduras and Minnesota, subjecting them to that freezing weather? I mean, was it a dangerous game to subject your own players to playing in those conditions, despite the fact that they had played their games all in the north prior to that and had acclimatized a little bit better? Or is this just does everybody need to get used to the fact that this is CONCACAF, this is what we do over here?
It was stupid. I'm sorry. You know, it's Minnesota. They could have played it in Kansas City. They could have played it at a sporting park. It would have been 35 degrees. It still would have been cold, and nobody would have complained. Like Greg Berhalter is saying, they played in Hamilton, right? The problem is Canada doesn't have a ton of options. So Canada's problem was they didn't want to go all the way to Vancouver, because that was the first rumor site for the game versus the US, because they had to go to Central America twice. So they figured the Ontario area was the quickest way, and Vancouver would just add like unnecessary hours, right? So that was that. The US is saying, well, we needed to go to Minnesota because it was only like an hour or 45-minute trip from Ontario, which is okay. I get that, but it's unsafe. I'm sorry. Like, 2 players from Honduras had hypothermia at halftime. They had to come off. All right. And then the backup keeper got hurt in the middle of the game. He stayed on, but they could have been in a position where they had to play an emergency keeper. It's dumb. It's stupid. I mean, the thing is that the United States has choices, has options. It's a big country. There's a lot of options. Some of these countries don't have options. Like Canada has like 3 options, right? They have either Vancouver, they have either BMO Field, or which for some reason was not used, which is in Toronto. I have no idea why it wasn't used, but it should have been played there. In Montreal, right? I mean, I think they played in Edmonton, right? But like that was kind of a waged out as well. So and I think Canada likes to kind of travel, take the team a little bit different places, almost like how the US does, right?
Mhm.
But all right, but here's the thing: they're playing the Panama at home in Orlando in March, right? Like, why couldn't they play it in New England? Why couldn't they play it back in Columbus? Because it's colder. It would have been maybe cold or whatever. No, it's stupid. It's dumb, unnecessary. It's ridiculous. It's just plain stupid. I hated the decision. Uh, poor Matt Turner had the NFL quarterback pouch to keep the hands warm, and the first time the referee stopped the whistle for a foul, he saw it and he told Matt Turner to take it off. He's like, "That's not allowed. You cannot have that here." And then poor Matt Turner, every time there was a break, someone from the USA who was doing warm-ups by the goal by the keeper gave him a blanket to use to keep cool, to keep warm. It was awful. I hated it. It's stupid. Don't ever do it again. And luckily, they don't ever have to do it again, because the next World Cup they auto qualify, and after that, it's going to be really, really easy to qualify out of CONCACAF. So it should not be a big issue. But it was dumb. And for all those, I mean, I bared the Canada cold. I don't know if I could do the Minnesota cold. I've done minus 17 degrees wind chill with the lake effect snow in Chicago for an NFL game, but the Minnesota thing was just it was bad. It was awful. It's dumb. Don't do it again.
I come down on the side of that was just really, 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 really bad form. Right. I know and I understand the game in Denver, right? Yeah, they played them at altitude. You have to understand that there's always a risk of there being a blizzard. But I also understand that it was March. The game had been scheduled there for a while. It was a blizzard, right? Like, you can't expect the US to control the weather. You're playing outdoors in Minnesota in February. What kind of sense does that make? All right. I was not in favor of that decision. I think you unnecessarily risked your players, and I think you unnecessarily risked the safety of your fans as well.
Yep.
Right. I know that, okay, it's Minnesota, they're used to the cold and stuff like that, but most of the things in Minnesota are underground. There's a lot of underground tunnels, things like that, so that you don't have to go and stand outside in an unheated environment in 17 degree below zero wind chill, minus 17 wind chill for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and like I've been in Minnesota, right? And I went for a Cowboys at Vikings game, and I tailgated outside in the parking lot, but I had an open flame keeping me warm, right? And the game was indoors, right? And I know the Vikings have played in the University of Minnesota Stadium while they were waiting for their new stadium to be constructed, and that's outdoors. But it was unnecessary. Like it really it basically said the US was like, I'm scared of Honduras, so I had to make it unpleasant for them, so I could get an advantage. Like, you're telling me that you have Champions League winners, Champions League playing players on that squad, and you're scared of playing Honduras in Austin, Texas? Are you that scared? Like, really? Like, and they have nothing to play for, right? It's not like if you played it in Houston, that all the Honduran fans would have came over to watch this game. Like, there would have been some, but there's nothing to play for. So like, there's like, the fans are like, whatever, why are we gonna go to the game where it doesn't matter, right? So it really it was done to risk the health of players, of fans, just to get a little bit of advantage. I mean, yeah, if you want to do it to Mexico, fine, I get it. But like, look what happened to Mexico and Canada in Edmonton. But no, this was unnecessary, and it should never ever have to do it again.
I think that's what we need to do. Save that when you're going to do the games, when you're going to do stuff like that, save it for Mexico, right? Save it for Mexico. Save it for Canada. You want to play Canada down in the Florida Keys because you think it's going to make them a little bit uncomfortable? By all means, do it. You want to play Mexico in Minnesota? By all means, do it. I'm all for it. But don't do that against Honduras. And so it's impossible for me to
play a game in the Aloha Stadium over here in Hawaii. I mean, I guarantee you it would be jam-packed. They're closing it down next month, but I guarantee you if they did it,
yes, yeah, it would be. And I'm thinking like it would be. I guess it's just the logistics.
It is a travel thing. It's only a travel.
It's 5.5 hours from California.
Yeah. So, which brings me to the next point. It's impossible for us to sit here and analyze that game because we just learned that. They played a game in really atrocious weather, and the U.S. team won.
I mean, the positive of that game was that the United States has rediscovered how to score a goal off a set piece. For the whole tournament, the whole cycle, they haven't scored a set piece goal. I mean, all right. So the Nations League final, they scored off a penalty. The game against Mexico in the Gold Cup final, they scored off a set piece goal, and the Christian Pulisic goal in the World Cup qualifier versus Mexico was off a set piece goal. So it was a one goal. That was it, right? And that's it. The center back doesn't score the goal at all, and they finally started scoring goals here, which is a positive because the USA has used the set pieces as the ultimate equalizer against better opponents. So that was probably the one positive thing. The other positive thing is we pretty much discovered who is probably the best center back the U.S. has, and that is Walker Zimmerman. Walker Zimmerman, who when he played versus El Salvador and when he played versus Honduras, the U.S. defense stepped it up, and primarily because Walker Zimmerman has mastered, compared to his colleagues on the back line, how to step in front of a player and snuff a counterattack. Plenty of times a player would receive a ball and Walker Zimmerman would be right there to poke it out, and the U.S. goes on a break. Miles Robinson and Chris Richards do not do that well, and it shows. And so Honduras tried to do plenty of attacking through the midfield, and Walker Zimmerman was right there to stop it all. So which is a revelation because he is an MLS player. He'd never been to Europe. No one in Europe is sniffing for him either. So, but he's shown on this stage where it matters for a country that he can be the most valuable center back, and he scored a goal too, which is off a set piece, which is amazing. So that's been
we
a
scored
revelation.
goals off of set pieces because we're shooting against an injured backup keeper, and the Hondurans were literally frozen.
Yep. I mean, everybody was frozen, to be fair, but like I think the U.S. were better prepared because some of the U.S. players grew up in colder climates.
No,
right? So
but it's easier to when what you're supposed to be doing at an exact moment. Like the Hondurans were literally frozen in place. Not that they were scared; they were physically, actually frozen to the ground.
Like cubes, man, like ice cubes. It was amazing.
So yeah, we scored a couple off of set pieces. I did like how Walker Zimmerman played. It looks like it is now, John Anthony Brooks is pretty much out of the frame. Greg Bierhalter did say before the game that he is paying attention to Cameron Carter-Vickers. What are the chances that if CCV keeps this up over the next couple of months leading into the March window, given that it's a 3-game, given that where we're playing, what are the chances that we could see potentially Cameron Carter-Vickers make an appearance again for the U.S. men's national team in March?
I think he deserves a call up. I think he is number 4 on the depth chart, in my opinion, which is right behind Walker Zimmerman, Chris Richards, and Miles Robinson.
Right now, that position has regularly gone to Mark McKenzie.
Yeah, who
is not the field. Yeah, and who is not playing that well.
Yeah. Or not playing.
Yes. So, I mean, is it time to say, okay, let's bring in Cameron Carter-Vickers and see what he can do and see how he can complement these guys? Because I actually think he might fit well. We've seen the combination of Walker Zimmerman and Cameron Carter-Vickers, albeit a much more immature version of both of them. Before, I think, Miles Robinson, what he does, I could see them fitting in together.
I think CCV, he deserves a call up, and I think depending on how USA does against Mexico, and if by luck they get 3 points, or even 1 point, but they need points in at the Azteca, I think he might even deserve to start versus Panama at home. I think he's earned that right, especially if you have another center back who can play the ball out the back. Like, for example, you pair him with a Chris Richards, for example. I think that might work. Let CCV clean up everything. Let them head everything, out, because Panama's going to, they're desperate at this point, right? They need to fend off Costa Rica. So they're going to really push high, put a lot of balls into the box. And so you're going to need someone who's good in the air, who has experience playing that way, and who is in form to really clean up the mess. And I think CCV is that player. It might not happen, but he deserves a call up. He deserves a shot in camp, and let him come in, let him sniff it out, let him train, and then Berhalter wants to put him in for a few minutes. That's fine, and because he's earned his right. I mean, I'm sorry, Matt Miazga, he's playing at Alaves, but he's been Mark McKenzie, like you said before, has been meh or not playing at all. So CCV to me jumps up. He's done the work. He's gone to a place where he's getting minutes, and he deserves it.
All right, so we go into the last round. We've got away fixtures against Costa Rica and Mexico around a home fixture against Panama. If we can even if we just draw against Costa Rica and Panama, regardless of what happens against Mexico, we're pretty much good.
No, they what they need is they need 3 points against Panama, and they're pretty much almost insured of the 4th place spot at the very minimum, which is a one-off playoff, probably against New Zealand in Qatar in June, right? But if they need a point in Mexico, and they need it, so in essence, right? So they actually can't qualify for the World Cup if they win Mexico and 2 other things happen. I think Panama has to lose or something, and then Panama had to lose in Honduras or something, and then Costa Rica has to draw or something. Yeah, so a bunch of things have to happen. So they can happen on the first day, but it requires the U.S. beating Mexico. But they really need 4 points. 4 points out of the final 3 games is essential to qualify, because you do not want to rely on a draw or anything, or draw at the very minimum in Costa Rica, because it's almost the U.S. never does well in Costa Rica at all. It's almost impossible to get points there, and it's going to be the last, and they're going to be fighting for their lives to make it. They're not even in the picture at the moment, so they're going to do everything they can to get there. And it's going to be an intense environment, and it's going to be hot probably. The Costa Rica will make their lives miserable. And it will. You don't want that to happen. You want the World Cup to be assured by then. We go in, play a little bit, and then let the party start as the U.S. goes back to the World Cup.
All right, so we'll get more on that when we get closer to those games when they come up in March. Tell us a little bit about the weekend in the Bundesliga.
So there was two key matches, two top spiels, which was the Bayern Red Bull Leipzig or RB Leipzig and the Leverkusen and Dortmund games. So the first one, which is Bayern and Leipzig, fun, intense game. Even though Leipzig lost, they looked really good. They were very unfortunate to lose. Serge Gnabry pretty much scored a goal, but it was really an own goal. Vardiol, who's been excellent this whole season, by the way, for RB Leipzig, and they have an excellent shot to make Champions League. I mean, they're really, Union Berlin, Freiburg, all those players, Hoffenheim lost as well. Union Berlin lost, so I think Freiburg drew. They're, so Leipzig is in the best spot to really get a little bit hot and solidify fourth, and then because they have the talent. They sold a lot of players, but they spent a lot of money, and they finally got Tedesco. Dominic Tedesco's been an amazing coach for Leipzig. He speaks like 6 languages, right? He speaks like Italian, speaks German, he speaks Russian too, by the way, which is amazing. And they're playing really well. Like Andre Silva had rediscovered their form, and Kuku's been amazing. Vardio, like I said before, has been a revelation in that back line. They're playing amazing ball. They were beautiful to watch, and they were a little bit unlucky not to get points at Bayern. So Bayern, once again, though, they develop a 9-point lead. Come Sunday, which is the Leverkusen Dortmund game, Dortmund has no Haaland because he got hurt before the international break. And what happens? Dortmund just gets smacked around the pitch by Leverkusen. It seems like Leverkusen rediscovered their form. Patrick Schick, Florian Wirtz, Diaby, all those players, they're doing amazing work there. And Dortmund just had nobody in defense this season. They had nobody in defense, right? They're playing like central midfielders and center backs, and it went piss poor, right? And the only good thing about Dortmund that happened this weekend, from an American fan standpoint, is Giovanni Reina got on the pitch, and he didn't look too bad considering he's been out for like 4 months. So I'm happy to say Giovanni Reina is back. I hope to see him in March in the squad fire window. But Dortmund, on the other hand, they've just been bad once again. The race is over. I don't know if Haaland comes back next week. He's almost certainly gone this summer, and that's all she wrote for the league. Bayern, beat. I know they have to play Dortmund again soon. They have to play Leverkusen soon as well. But I think, despite even if they drop some points there to those opponents, I think they all play at the Allianz, by the way. They all play in Munich, so they're all home matches. This is Bayern's title race is done, is over, and Dortmund once again have shown to the world that they are the pretenders of the Bundesliga. They every once in a while they'll make you think that they can actually compete with Bayern, and then they implode on their own.
I mean, at some point though, I know that the finances of Dortmund are not exactly the greatest. They're not nearly on the same level that they are at Bayern. They took a risk with Haaland. They knew the deal that they were signing when they signed it. They knew that it was a temporary thing. They knew that it was for the terms of this contract until that buyout kicked in. They got what they wanted. What can they do to change this? Because it seems like they have their star man in Haaland, but then they have a bunch of young players in Reina and Bellingham, Torgan Hazard, who's come on. You have an aging, well past his prime, injured superstar in Marco Reus. How can they actually put together a team that mount a serious challenge to Bayern, which is something that, let's be honest, they haven't really done since Klopp left and they had to sell Robert Lewandowski. Or they let Lewandowski go for free.
So they have to be ambitious. They have to be daring and take a chance and spend some money. And today was their first step of reclamation by taking Nicolas Sula from Bayern. So Nicolas Sula is out of contract this summer. The Dortmund has signed him on a free. He comes in June, and it's a major grab for Dortmund, which is finally they get a star who's going to shore up their back line, a position of need, as we like to say for all of us who love the NFL draft, a position of need. And they poach one of the players from their biggest rivals, which is Bayern.
Did they really poach him, or is it a case that Bayern kind of let the guy go?
Well, so it depends on who you ask, because the word on the street has been that Bayern offered him an amount. Nicolas Sula wanted a higher amount. Bayern wouldn't give him that amount, primarily because his fitness issues have been sort of a history with him, right? So last season with Hansi Flick, there was a problem where like he came in out of shape, he was not in form. He's like, how like Lewandowski and Alphonso Davies and Leon Goretzka take to the gym in a weight room. That's not the Nicolas Sula way. He does not do that. I mean, he's a big guy naturally, but he has some injury. He has a little bit of injury history with his knee, and he never really got the chisel look. He's never been a dedicated gym rat like the others. And I think that played a part in like, you know what, we're going to pay you this amount, but we can't give you that amount because we don't know how serious you are. I think he's still a great player. He's a starting center back for Germany national team, along with Antonio Rudiger, in my opinion. And so it is, at the same time, Bayern, who are supposed to be this team of grand finances, they also still have to watch their books, and they gave Kingsley Coleman a big contract. They still have to sign Serge Gnabry. They want to extend Thomas Muller, Lewandowski, and Manuel Neuer for a couple more seasons. That all costs money. They're all going to want raises. So pretty much they could not give everybody raises. So thus Nicolas Sula had to go. And it's a shame because I think, they're going to miss him. He played in the final versus PSG. He played really well in the final as well. He's been a stud of a player. Every time he plays right back, all of us Bayern fans, we call him Sulinho because he likes to do all these little flicks and tricks and everything. We forget, like I forget too. I actually learned this today that, Nicolas Sula started off as a forward initially, and when he was much younger, and then he slowly moved into the back line. So he's always had this ambition to go forward. So Dortmund are doing some great business here. They're not spending any money in the transfer fee, so Bayern don't get nothing for him. Nicolas Sula is going to get a nice little signing bonus, and he's going to be the big fish there. He's going to be the best player in defense on Dortmund, which is not saying much because Hummels is aging out. Zagadu's been for the last few seasons. Axel Witsel is in his last legs as a center defensive midfielder. And so Nicolas Sula is he'd better get used to not winning trophies though, because just because he's a Dortmund, he might lift the Pokal once, but that's about it. He won't sniff the Champions League. He won't sniff the Bundesliga title because Dortmund need a lot of help. Nicolas Sula is one piece that they need, and they need to do more because all the other teams are spending. Bayern's going to spend money. I mean, they have their players, so they're spending money already. Leipzig is going to spend money. They're going to sell some, but they're going to spend as well. So Dortmund needed to continue that. So they took their first big step into saying that, no, we want to be serious again. They need several more steps to really be serious about it.
We're going to welcome in our good friend, Chelsea Mike. Mike, you said you had a question that you wanted to ask.
Yeah, I got a new setup. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Excellent. Thanks. Sorry, Rob. Rob, is it time to admit that Dortmund made a $100 million mistake not selling Haaland this year? I mean, they clearly their gambit didn't pay off. They're not challenging for the top of the Bundesliga. They're not going to win Europe. It's why didn't they sell him for 175 million this year when they could have got it?
We're going to welcome in our good friend, Chelsea Mike. Mike, you said you had a question that you wanted to ask.
Yeah, I got a new setup. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Excellent. Thanks. Sorry, Rob.
I think the biggest reason is because they need him to qualify for Champions League. I think if Holland is not on this team, he doesn't save their behinds in a few matches. It's a different, probably a 10 to 12 point difference, and potentially that means ending up in Europa League.
Right, but
They
it's
need
only,
Champions League.
I mean, it's only like, it's something like 20, it's not, you don't get 100 million for just qualifying for the Champions League.
No,
So I mean, you were just bragging about the business savvy of Dortmund, but I think there's a big, they
Sell
missed a
him for
big
100
opportunity to
175 million. Buy Patrick Schick for 50 million. You're still up 120 million.
yeah.
I
And,
think that
and,
I
I mean, they're gonna, so the difference, they're gonna get 75 million next year for the release clause, but you know, I mean, they're not, you don't get $100 million for being in the Champions League. You don't, I mean, I know the prestige is something, and I know extra cup matches and whatever, but why did they, you know, at the end of the day, was that a good decision?
I mean, you know, so I think there's a couple of things, right? They need to explain to their fan base that, you know, they can't be sellers and they can't be, contenders at the same time, right? They sold Jadon Sancho already, so they're like, we can't sell the two best players we have, you know, in the same offseason. It would, the Dortmund fan base would flip out, right? And I know they will have all this money in their hands, and we would hope they would spend it well, but it would be just a bad optics at all. It would be awful optics. They knew they were going to get 75 million for Holland, right? So they're going to get something for him. And I think, for all we know, like, I know there had been rumors out there of big grandiose spending, like, or proposals for Holland, but it still was a COVID year. You know, I don't know how much the finances of some of these clubs were intact enough to make such a big offer.
Listen to me, Chelsea. If Chelsea would have found 175 million,
they probably. I mean, I know.
So would have Liverpool. I mean, so would have. I mean, you're talking about, this is
not Liverpool,
not
not
Germany,
Liverpool.
right? It's not. There's no fan ownership. There's no splits. It's just a billionaire, and if he wants him, he'll just write the check.
Yeah, I get that, you know, but at the same time, the player has to want to go there as well, right? So we don't know what Haaland wants. He's been really tight-lipped about where he wants to go. We've heard City, we've heard Real Madrid, but Benzema's still there. I mean, every time you think Benzema is starting to like sink down and, you know, go into the twilight of his career, he tells you, no, I'm not. I know he keeps scoring goals. I mean, you know, and then obviously people say, okay, why doesn't he go to Bayern? Bayern can afford him. Lewandowski getting up there in age, but Lewandowski is going to score 39 goals again, right, this season. So, you know, you tell Lewandowski to sit, you tell Haaland to sit, and it ain't going to happen. So I think Dortmund just didn't have the offers that they wanted, and also they really couldn't sell. They would not have been able to sell to the two best players and explain it to their fan base and their shareholders, by the way, because they actually are part of their the club is on the stock market as well. You can actually buy shares in Dortmund, like almost like how you buy United stocks. But no, it just would have been bad. And you know, I know there some people, you know, those who play, you know, Football Manager would have said, well, Haaland could play next to Lewandowski in a 4-4-2. But the problem is that you have two amazing wingers, and then you're gonna win in Coman and Sane and Gnabry, mind you, and then you have Kimmich, you have Muller, you have Goretzka. So it's hard to bench somebody, right? So, and there's only one ball, right? We always had the problem in basketball where we want to load up the stars, but we forget there's only one basketball. There's only one football, right? It only goes to one person. It's Lewandowski, and he's earned that right to say it. So, I think Dortmund they're going to sell Haaland. He's going to go. They're going to get cash from him, and some of the money is going to be spent on Sula, and then some of the money needs to be spent on the midfield and another person in the back line, because if you drop too many goals, there's no way you're winning. You need to stop the Bayern juggernaut from scoring goals, and that's the only way you're going to even contend for a Bundesliga title.
All right. Well, Rob, we want to thank you for coming on and joining us and talking about Germany. And we are going to shift our focus, talk a little bit of lower leagues and some FA Cup with Chelsea Mike. Mike, it was one of those weekends, the FA Cup, some lower league teams, Boreham Woods getting the job done. There was a fight at Forest and Leicester. Forest getting it done there. Leicester fan deciding that he takes umbrage to Forest scoring and goes out. So fan violence. Give me your.
I mean, it was a pretty crazy weekend, wasn't it? It started off pretty. I honestly, in the first three games, right? The Friday night game and then the early window in Saturday, which was Kidderminster West Ham, which was, I mean, you want to talk about a crazy escape. West Ham extra time twice scoring goals to beat non-league Kidderminster Harriers. Kidderminster, by the way, this is their second time as a non-league side making the fifth round of the FA Cup final, or FA Cup tournament. So congrats to Kidderminster. They're staking their claim for all-time giant killers. But Mike, what happened with Man U in that Friday night game?
We are seeing at Manchester United that the problems with United go way beyond simply the manager, right? The squad is unbalanced. And it should be, because it's basically put together by about 3 or 4 managers. Ralph Rangnick, I think, has skills and quality, but there's a limit to what he can do. I saw, again, the limits to what Cristiano Ronaldo is at this point in his career, and they became manifestly clear to me. They get the penalty. Bruno Fernandes has been as doggone automatic for Manchester United taking penalties, just about as you can get. Ronaldo says he wants it. He has to step up and take it. He takes it. He misses. Right. It's okay. Jadon Sancho comes down, scores an individual goal, but then that's where it ends. Second half lull, defensive lapse. Whether do I think that might have been a handball? Yeah, but it never should have come down to that, right? They had too many opportunities to put the ball in the net, and too many players big names who were relatively anonymous, right?
Right.
Very anonymous. I was looking at an article on Paul Pogba and his potential move. His contract is up, and look, it has been 6 lackluster years at Manchester United where I don't think that he has done much of anything. And I don't think it was just down to the managers. I think a lot of the blame on that one goes to the player. He's been hurt. He got the big move. He thought he got his social media following, and I think he stopped working on his game, because there's never been any measure of consistency that I've seen from Paul Pogba game in, game out. Do I think that he has good games here and there where you can see flashes of brilliance from him? Yes. Do I think that by and large, have I ever seen him be the player that he claims that he wants to be, the player that can pick a team up by the scruff of its neck and lead it forward on a consistent basis? No. And he's angling for a big money move to Barcelona, Real Madrid, someplace else. So Manchester United is going to help launch my career. I came back. I got a big transfer, a world record fee at the time. Now I'm going to get £500,000 a week to go someplace. I've said on time and time again, I think if there was that type of offer out for him, we'd already know it. And I don't think that there's that type of offer. I don't think that there's a £25 million a season offer out there for him, because there's nothing about him right now, as I see him, as he gets closer and closer to 30, that says £25 million a season player.
Well, I think every game that he plays that N'Golo Kante isn't sitting right behind him, he looks, he does not look like an elite player.
But that's what, so you need this N'Golo Kante figure, but then you put a Scott McTominay back there, you put somebody back there, right? So either Paul Pogba is not that effective unless he has an N'Golo Kante or a Giorgio Chiellini, a Pirlo, or somebody else playing right off of him. So now you want somebody who wants £25 million a week, who has a very, very limited, very, very specific role, where you have to build a midfield to get anything out of him. To hope to get anything out of him, you need to build an equally as expensive midfield around him, who has to, in the words of an immortal viral video, ain't nobody got time for that, right?
Right.
I felt like so many of the United players were waiting on, oh, well, we're just going to get the ball to Ronaldo and see what Ronaldo does, or everything has to go through Ronaldo. And that didn't work. Marcus Rashford has clearly not had his best season. Mason, I finally saw what Jadon Sancho was capable of, but just too many, down performances this year. And when it went to pens, I knew that they were going to lose. And they lost a game that they shouldn't have lost, as they've been doing a lot this season, because that drive to win and the know-how to do it, isn't there. That institutional, we're going to get this together, we're going to pick ourselves up, move forward, and go. It's a collection of too many individuals, and I don't think that any one person can fix that before the end of the season. Ralph Ragnick's charge was to get them into the Champions League. I think that this will be one of his greatest managerial accomplishments if he does, and I don't think they will right now, get them back into the Champions League. And as far as any other trophies go, hey, come on, this season was lost a long time ago. I'm not worried about it. There's plenty of other things to watch. There's plenty of other things to cheer for. I can go out, have a good time, and watch Man United play and be all right. But in the meantime, if I don't feel like that, I can watch Ireland rugby. I can watch the Six Nations. Celtics having a great season. Like, I'm gonna be okay. I don't need them bringing me down. So I'm good, homie. I'm good.
I do want to go back though just a little bit to talk about the injustice of the game, right? I mean, well, you and I are the two biggest trolls on this show, right? So like when your hand's out here and the ball hits it, it's a handball, right?
Oh, look, okay, no, I don't disagree with the fact there's no question it was a handball. Like, it should have been a handball. Anything should have been a handball. And but the fact of the matter is, it
shouldn't have come down that. It shouldn't have come down.
First of all, okay, right, I agree. It shouldn't have come down to that, but it was played at the Theatre of Dreams. There was VAR in effect. And I'm almost kind of glad that VAR didn't step in and overturn it, because it kind of proves the point, like the negative point of, oh, why don't we have VAR? It's sort of an illogical argument. I mean, no, it was a handball. Like, if that happened in my game on Sunday, I'd have been pissed off. Like the ref didn't call it a handball because it was about as clear as day. But it kind of shows you where VAR is supposed to step in, and VAR failed to step in, which is another failure of VAR. But you know, it just proves that
Well, it's over. It's just an
consistent
overcomplication
VAR
of the
throughout the
rule.
entire flipping tournament.
But we
No,
already,
that's true.
we
But it's an
already had
overcomplication of the
this-
rule, right? The reason that they gave why it wasn't called handball was because it was inadvertent and in the lead up. And since another player played the ball into the goal, it didn't it is now judged to
It
not
should
affect
have,
the game.
it should have, look, listen, it should have been whistled dead right then because the ball touched his hand. It went off of him into his hand, right?
Yeah.
And his hand was in, he was making himself bigger. By every definition, to me, that was a handball. But let me put it this way. It never should have come down to that. It never should have come down to that. That is too convenient and out. Nobody
You
gets
sound
off the
like
hook.
me being devil's advocate.
It never should
No,
have
I
come
mean-
down to that. And number one. Number two, we've already had this conversation at length over the inconsistencies of VAR in the FA Cup. And the long and short of it is either play with it or play without it. But play with one set of rules throughout the tournament. It is complete and total BS that you have it in games played at Premier League grounds and in certain rounds, but not in others. You know, if we're going to play a tournament, you play the tournament with the same rules. That's like telling me that we're going to play half the NBA finals or half the NFL playoffs with instant replay and half the NFL playoffs without instant replay.
Right. And it just
Right,
depends on what's
we're-
and again,
Or
their
some
whole
NBA
excuse.
and some NBA playoff games are going to get five foul. You're going to have 5,000 foul out. Some are going to. You have one consistent set of circumstances throughout an entire tournament. If you feel that you can't have it across the board for all these appropriate rounds, then you don't do it. Right.
And again, I have, you know, my position on this. I've said every single game is on TV. They're all being filmed. There can be a
whether you
central
wanna-
VAR who can look at the tape, and if they can't determine, they can't determine. If the angles are weird, the angles are weird. But then at least you have a video review, right? Video review is supposed to just be a review. It's not supposed to be another
seen
ref.
it where it doesn't work before, right? Not every game is on tournament because there are earlier round games. So if you want to judge
Well-
that the tournament starts at the qualifying stages and runs through it through the finals, right? But as long as you,
I mean, very good point about the qualifying stages. Very good.
Will has already established that he's anti-VAR in the FA Cup. You've already said you're pro. And I'm just saying, for the most of us, for the bulk of us that fill in for that other 75% in the middle of this spectrum, one game tournament, one rule. All right.
I mean, dude, crowdsource, right? Just in those opening round games, just have everybody with their phones.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. All right, moving right along. Like there is no. The long and short of it is there is no one set of rules for the entire tournament. The tournament is what the tournament is. We play by the same rules. Everybody plays by the same ground rules. We know what the rules are when we walk into the stadium, right? That's called consistency. And that's what makes people happy. That's what makes people want to come back and watch more of it because I know what to expect when I'm watching the game. As far as United go, look, I really don't care. They can hem and haw as much as they want to about that handball. Do I believe it was a handball? Yes. But the fact of the matter is it should never have come down to that. They should have been at least 2 or 3 goals to good before that happened. And if you're going to say like, oh, we poor us, we went out on this bad VAR situation. Look, score more goals. Score more goals, right? If you're mad about giving up one on a messed up VAR situation, score two. And it's not like they didn't have time to score a second before it went to penalties. Because I know they had the remainder of the second half, and that goal was in like the 70th minute or something, plus all of extra time. You had plenty of time to score a second goal, and you had world-class subs on the bench that you could bring in who trumped anything that Middlesbrough had. If you're really the better team, go out and demonstrate it, leave it on the field and show us. Otherwise, as my cousin used to say, quit your bitching.
I mean, you know what? There are two. I agree with you. You shouldn't blame VAR if you're a United supporter. You shouldn't blame Ralph Ragnarsson. I think the game plan was good. They had what, 30 shots on goal, or 30 shots total. I mean, they generated the opportunities. They just didn't finish. They need better finishing.
That comes down to your forwards. And I brought in a guy in Cristiano Ronaldo who's known for his finishing ability. You have 30 shots on target. You're telling me he can't put one in? All right. So that horse is sufficiently dead and beaten. Moving on to other things FA Cup related.
I'll do a really quick summary. Guys, we're in the round of 16. 7 of those 16 sides are from lower leagues. I just want to point out that the FA Cup just proves how good a league the Championship is. Yes, probably on 8 out of any 10 days, Championship side's going to lose to a Premier League side, but they do supply some very good upsets, and have this year. You know, it's 7 out of 16 sides, including Bournemouth, the non-league side, in the 5th round. Just a little history lesson for you. Since 1994, when Kidderminster Harriers went to the 5th round as a non-league side, every non-league side who have reached that far have gotten into the league within 4 years. So you know, Bournemouth are in the playoff spots right now to get into the league. But that's, I don't know if you're betting people, but since 4 years seems to be the max, if you're getting better than 4-1, well, then odds say to take that bet. In the upcoming rounds, you do have one completely lower league match in Nottingham Forest and Huddersfield. Chelsea luck out with Luton Town. Although I want to point out again the Championship, right? Out of the 6 Championship teams who are in this round, only one of them are in the top 4. And the difference between 6th place, the final playoff spot, and 12th is just 6 points. So all of those other teams, with the exception of Peterborough, fall into that. They fall into that realm. So it's going to be an absolutely excellent end to the season. Sheffield United's back up in that 6, pushing for the playoffs. I predicted early in the season that Sheffield United would get promoted again. If they dug themselves up from 18th, which was where they were, that would be it would be quite the reclamation project. And also, you know, as a Chelsea supporter, I'm not excited to see Luton Town on pretty good form, won their last 3 in the Championship. Had a pretty easy road so far through the FA Cup, beating a League 2 and a League 1 side, but you hate playing a team with momentum, especially on the road, as Chelsea will travel to Luton Town in the next round. Let's talk about Bournemouth. Bournemouth beat Bournemouth which was probably the shock of the round. Bournemouth being a non-league side, Bournemouth being in the catbird seat to get automatic promotion back to the Premier League from the Championship. They're playing Everton in the next round, and you know what? Everton won 4-1 against Brentford this week. Frank Lampard's first match as manager, sure, an exciting time and a great win. But the match was not really that disparate, right? Right before Everton added their third, Ivan Toney almost equalized, and probably should have. But that said, I mean, they were minutes away from, I don't want to call it a disaster, but certainly not a 4-1 win. Only one non-league team, that's Lincoln City a couple years ago, has ever gotten to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. I think Everton's a really good draw for them. I don't think Everton knows what they are yet. I think Bournemouth would know precisely what they are, and have been giant killers doing that. So, you know, I think there's optimism in Everton right now, but I wouldn't be so thrilled to see Bournemouth. And I'd almost rather see Norwich, because at least you know what you're getting out of Norwich or Southampton, teams in the bottom half of the Premier League. And you know that you have to put a good side out to face them. Whenever you see a very much lower side than you, the risk is always, well, not with Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea have been playing everybody. But the risk is always that you put out a side that, you know, you're trying to get experience for some younger guys. You're trying to get some other guys who don't play as much in the mix. You know, this is the 5th round of the FA Cup. I would advise Frank Lampard against that. However, Frank Lampard does do that. Interestingly, I believe his last game as Chelsea manager was against Luton Town, if I recall correctly. So isn't it just history repeating? That's what I've got on the FA Cup. Did you all have fun watching games this weekend? I mean, you know, Norwich got past the round of 32. They're the 21st best team by law in England.
You know, that hurt your feelings that Norwich got past the round of 16. They're the 21st best team, in your opinion, in all of England, but somehow they made it into the round of 16. Give us some highlights that you saw from the draw for the quarterfinals.
You know, I mean, honestly, because there's so many lower league sides, a lot of the matchups look unbalanced. The two matches that I really have my eye on for the next round are Crystal Palace Stoke and Middlesbrough Tottenham. Middlesbrough beat Man U, so you know that they can do it. Tottenham wildly inconsistent. So, you know, they've been better recently under Conte, but let's see. Crystal Palace Stoke City is probably, I haven't checked I haven't done the math, but it's probably the closest between a Premier League and a non-Premier League side. It's at Palace, so unfortunately you don't get the cold night in Stoke, but I mean, that's my match that I want to see out of the next round. And then of course Bournemouth, you know, let's see them get into those quarterfinals. Let's see you equal Lincoln City Bournemouth, because you know what, Fat Frankie was always my favorite, and that's very alliterative. But you know what, if he's frowning at the end of the match, I'm pretty sure it would be twinged in a smile, because everyone will have known what Bournemouth would have accomplished.
And Mike, do you know where Bournemouth is?
I don't. I've never been.
You've never
or
been?
seen. No.
Okay.
Do you know where
Yeah.
Borehamwood is?
I've driven through it many a time. Yeah, strange enough.
Where is it?
Population 31,305 in South Hertfordshire. So only 12 miles from Charing Cross, London.
All right, so Mike, we get back in earnest to lower league football after a FA Cup weekend break. What should we be looking forward to this weekend from this round of fixtures in the lower leagues?
Well, I
tomorrow.
mean, well, I honestly, I haven't looked ahead. I was doing my look back. But I haven't checked ESPN's schedule for this week, and I should have told you that before that, so you didn't ask me that question. But you're getting championship football on Saturday, so check it out. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Derby County versus Middlesbrough, but I haven't looked at the TV schedule yet.
So speaking of Derby County, they got another month.
Yeah,
together.
Derby County last week, the previous week, were given a month-long extension to prove that they could pay their team for the rest of the year. Which, I mean, that all the mood in Derby has improved tremendously because after a month they have considerably fewer things to pay for. They were hit kind of hard and did lose some good stars over the transfer window. When you're in administration, the administrators make decisions that don't necessarily reflect football necessities, and they did sell some of their better players off to various things, including Chelsea. But that said, things are looking more positive for Derby going forward, that they will remain in the league. However, the blows they took from the transfer market, they might really be the death blow for them in the championship for now, just because they can't bring anyone in. They can't replace anyone. So they have to replace from their own ranks. And when you run out of reserves, then you have to go to the youth. And, I mean, it's a harder and harder job for Wayne Rooney up there in Derbyshire. So, I think honestly, with the talent they've lost, I think it's just too much for them to hold on, but we'll see. But it's looking better for them to remain as an enterprise. So that's positive news.
All right. Meanwhile, we have Exmouth. Right? Yeah, I got that right, Sean. Right? All right. What's going on with our dear friends in Exmouth coming up?
They have a home game on Saturday, which I shall be attending, as long as it doesn't. I haven't checked to see if it's coincided. I'm surprised no one's mentioned that we've got the Prem back tonight. Well, tonight here for me anyway. We're back on, non-interrupted for, I don't know, about 6 weeks until the next international games. So
we also haven't mentioned that Chelsea's going to the
World Championships. Who do they play?
Yeah, Chelsea off this week in Abu Dhabi. They're playing El Alhi from Saudi Arabia in the semifinal.
That's a tough game. That's a tough game.
Are they playing El Ali from Saudi Arabia, or are they playing them the Egyptian version?
Or I'm sorry, no, they're playing El Hilal. El Alhi is playing Palmeiras, the South American champs. El Hilal is playing Chelsea.
Okay.
I apologize.
That sounds like a kebab.
Having messed up.
I'll have an El
names.
Halal, please, with chili sauce and chips.
I mean,
Right.
literally, that translates to the good.
Oh, does it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, halal is Arabic for good, so that's like the good guys.
Chelsea will be quaking in their shoes then.
Yeah, I honestly, I think Palmeiras is really the only thing that stands between Chelsea and the Club World Cup. Palmeiras, of course, South American champs. Last time Chelsea were in the Club World Cup, they lost to the South American champs. Although Tuchel's been throwing out some pretty hardcore lineups for games where they should be overwhelming their opponent and haven't exactly been doing so. So
Palmeiras is in a very, very interesting situation where all of their rivals in Sao Paulo have actually won this tournament before, and they haven't. And they could also be the first team to go to 3 finals and lose all of them, because they also missed the finals, so they could go 3 times and never win it. So we talk about this tournament meaning and what it might mean to a team like Chelsea. It's actually quite a big deal right now, at least within Brazil, and especially within Sao Paulo, where Palmeiras are the first team in 20 years to defend a Copa Libertadores. They're also like, this is a big one for them, right? And this is one that they think they didn't even make the finals last time out, losing to Monterrey in the semis. So they need to avoid becoming the first Brazilian team to go 3 times and not make it to the finals twice. And they need to have a shot to win it, because none of their local rivals have been 3 times, and each one of them have won it at least once.
yeah, no, I mean, it's all in the line. I'm kind of afraid of them. It just, the way we here in the Western Hemisphere take world football, I feel like a lot more seriously than the English and the Europeans do. Those world things just matter so much more to us. And yeah, it's nerve-wracking. We should beat Al Hilal. Although
it's strange that you have a World Baseball Series that only consists of American teams. But
no, there is one.
There's one non-American team in the World Series.
It has been won.
Okay.
It has been won by a team
Yeah.
from. It has been won at least twice by a team that is not from America. Now, why we call the national football, the champion, the basketball, and the NFL champions, the world champions of American football, is beyond me, since there are no teams internationally.
Correct. Mike, I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
All hypothetical. Chelsea lose the League Cup final to Liverpool. Chelsea lose the semi-final of the FA Cup to whoever they get. Chelsea don't get to the Champions League final and they finish 3rd in the league. Does Tuchel keep his job?
I think in this one case, he does. He's popular with the fan base. Fan bases turn on people for the Chelsea fan base turns as quickly as our ownership. I think in part we drive it. We drive some of this rush to get rid of managers in ways that have been too quick in the past. I think the fan base likes Tuchel. If this is, in this, if he puts the crest in the middle of the shirt for the Club World Cup and he gets to a couple finals, well, yes, I think he stays, but he's on incredibly thin ice. He's on if they're 1-1-1, he's got to be looking over his neck for his job, but in the next season. But I do think he would hold on through no trophies this year, but he's got to win the Club World Cup. You can't just do nothing. They won't, as much as they should, and develop a consistency. And I mean, Roman Abramovich and Marina Granskaya, they should have more patience. They don't. Usually the fan base is part of what's driving it, but it's not going to be this time. So I don't think he would get fired, but he might. I mean, it's two people's decision. Really, it's one. And what's that guy's mood? Not getting any titles.
All right.
I don't.
Mike, so thank you very much for giving us all of that. We're running overtime, so I gotta kind of unceremoniously end this. Gentlemen, it was a lot of fun. I want to thank the professor, Matt Kowalski, Byron Rob, Sean, Celtic Cam, Chelsea Mike, British Will, and of course, producer Stead for coming on and joining us. We had a great conversation. We did all right this week. We'll try and do better next week.